Hello everybody in America land and all over the Mr. and Mrs. America and all over the world. Today I've got a funny one. I'm going to link a TV show put out by one of the online providers, I'm just going to say, called Man in the High Castle to God. I know, boy, this is off the beaten path from my usual post. But in a certain sense, if you go back to the beginning of, see, it's a very popular TV series for that provider. It's very good. I'll kind of put the whole explanation out there in case you haven't seen it. But basically, an alternate reality existed where Hitler had won World War II by dropping an A-bomb on Washington. The Japanese were supportive of Hitler, so they basically, between them, for the most part, split up the world. The Germans got most of it. The United States was split. You had more than half of it was the Germans. You had about a portion that was called the neutral zone as a buffer, and then the western states were Japan, and they got Hawaii and Alaska and some stuff around there. And there's a resistance, of course. After years and years, 10 years or whatever, certain members of America, became members in America, became Nazi members, and everything was fascist Nazism ruled the day kind of thing. And the resistance, one of the things the resistance did was they kept getting films to try and spread and use. These films were newsreels from basically what we understand as reality. And they basically used newsreels from history of, the crumbling of the Nazi regime, of, Hiroshima and stuff like that, as like the people in that reality look at it and like, oh my God, is that really possible? And then Hitler had a big organization trying to collect these films. He's aware of them, and he would sit around and watch them and make him very mad. But I'm driving, I get a little distracted. And then in season 3, beginning of season 3, one of the girls who had been used to deliver one of the films to the Man in the High Castle, which was the resistance guy who was controlling these films, he was basically the main resistance person. She got there and delivered a film. She actually watched it, which they're not supposed to watch the film, because a lot of it's confusing. It's about different realities, and in the grand scheme, if you watch it, actually multiple realities have different films. These films came from multiple realities, and that was the whole thing. It was a split of the multiverse kind of thing. But the point I'm getting to, in the film, or in the show, eventually the Man in the High Castle met with Juliana, the girl who delivered one and became a big resistance member. And a lot of stuff went on, and go into all of it, about she had actually wound up killing somebody that was a resistance member, but he was going to do something bad. And after she did that, the Man in the High Castle met with her again. Pardon me. Froggy in my throat. He explained to her that every film he watched, every outcome, the only outcome that yielded positive results, quote unquote, she was in it killing that guy from the different multiverses, I guess, or whatever the whole deal was. He had manipulated this whole thing the whole time. kind of set up what she saw and kind of controlled it. So it was all planned about getting her to a certain point. And he kind of knew, I guess, from the films that, and there were thousands of them, looks like, about how she would get there and all that kind of stuff. You just had to move certain things and push her towards the things that moved her and that, you know, made her get to the point of where she would be in position of what he saw in the film to do what needed to be done, figuring that she would do it at that point. He'd seen it. It was a truth at some point. So it kind of made me think. Sometimes I think on the God side of things, I look back at points in my life and I think, you know, God was looking out for me. I was just thinking today, back 20 years ago, I borrowed a guy's motorcycle, friend of friend kind of thing, went for a little ride, and got into a curve probably about 40 miles an hour faster than I should have. And to this day, I have no idea how I made it through that curve without the hand of God. I mean, it was just, I by all means should have been off the road, because I mean, I went in that curve. 25 mile an hour curve, you figure, you know, a good rider on a motorcycle probably do it at 50. I went to it over 50. Let's just say over 50. And came out the other side and have no idea how. I mean, it was that. So I think to myself, well, if there's a purpose, or if there's a God controlling or whatever, you know, would you help me there because there's a purpose for me? Why haven't I realized this purpose? Have I done anything that I think could end in a purpose? But look at the grand scheme of things. Let's say God is the man in the high castle, and he kind of is. That things, you know, like right now, the job I'm doing, maybe in 3 years from now, I was meant to do something. Well, why have me doing this job for the last 2 years for another 3 years? If it's leading me into that, to be there at that specific point in time, why not, you know, change it a couple months before that point? But maybe it's something in my life that pushed me into choosing this back 2 years ago that I've got to now go through for that entire next, you know, those 2 years and the next 3 years to get to that point. The plan isn't always where I'm God, I can make something happen right now. Maybe it's got to be pushed towards a certain outcome. And that push may happen when you're a child for something that will lead you down a path 40, 50 years later when you're an adult. And we never know. That's fate. That's, if you want to call it on a non-godlike spiritual scale, fate or karma, or if you want to call it, you know, the hand of God. And either way you look at it, if you believe that things happen for a reason that may not be under our control, or it'll be fate or God or whatever, that reason has to be set in motion, and that set in motion isn't always an immediate thing. So I guess the point of it is just saying, I kind of look at it as accepting that maybe I am where I'm supposed to be. And if you're wondering out there, you know, am I in the right place? If it's where you're supposed to be and you believe in that, then yes, you are, more than likely. Even though it might not be good, you might not like it, you might not understand it. It, you know, it may be something that's, you know, a long way off, or a plan that needs more planning than a month or a day or a week or whatever. That, you know, where we are a lot of times isn't necessarily as simple as I'm just supposed to be here in one place in one day. Something might have to lead you there, and the butterfly effect per se, or the event to get you that point, your life event that makes you make decisions that lead you from here to here to here to here to here, and that last here is what you needed, or where you needed to be, you might not get there if it wasn't for the other events before that, and those other events, you know, may be long and arduous, but it still is what it is. And I guess at that point, you just have to have faith to say, I am where I'm supposed to be. And just really thought about that after how much, really, when you went back and look at Man in High Castle and the films and everything, and really looked at how much it took to get Juliana to the one point to kill this man in the Resistance, who was going to expose a young child's vulnerabilities for political purposes, and she didn't want him to do that. You know, how much was set up and what it took to get to that point just makes you think, well, you know, plans aren't always simple as, I'm going to dinner tonight, I'm going to decide right now where. So, just my thoughts, and maybe some good advice for somebody.